Sports on all the great platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you name it, we're on it. We're trending. We want to see if we can get a couple of people to call in. Jordy, let me ask you this. Before we get into Jake Paul and the Paul brothers running boxing, do you ever do talk to your viewers of your articles or your listeners and your subscribers? Do you ever talk to them much or respond to them or not? Can you kind of tell us about that a little bit before we jump into Jake Paul?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I always try to get back to my viewers and everything. I appreciate them for always reaching out to me. Whether that's good or bad, if you want to talk sports, we can always talk sports. If you want that clout, I got that too. We can whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, I appreciate all of my readers and listeners and everything, and I'm very accessible.
Now you would never get any heat. Nobody would ever come at you with some
never.
What is? But if you were, what is something that they've come on fire you about recently?
Maybe my goodness. Okay, so does it have to be recently? Because I have a really good one for you.
Hey, even if it was a few months ago or a year ago, let's hear something that you want to share before we get into Jake Paul. Because we're, by the way, Jordy, we're getting in the mood for some boxing for Jake Paul. So let's go with that fire. Let's hear it.
So hey, I'm gonna go ahead and set the foundation for this. So this is actually an MMA topic. So when Brock Lesnar was in the UFC and he fought Cain Velasquez for the heavyweight belt, I actually picked Cain Velasquez to win that fight. And I was actually writing for a smaller publication called SportsHaze.com, and I wrote 5 reasons Cain Velasquez is going to beat Brock Lesnar, right? And it actually got picked up by Fox Sports, and it was on their front page and everything. So, but I got tons of hate mail for that. People were calling me an idiot. It was crazy. Like people said I shouldn't talk about MMA. Like I need to go find a new job. I need to go find a different sport to talk about. Go work at Kinko's. Go do something else. But yeah, man, it was terrible. It was terrible. I got all the heat.
So you got all the heat. And then
Cain Velasquez won, and then of course I gave all the heat back.
So what did you do? What was that like? Because by the way, I wasn't one of the ones that you hate, but I missed that article you did, but I did love Brock Lesnar. So I would have been all the Brock. I love Brock Lesnar. Was he the greatest? No, he's a big, tough, 6'4", 280-pound, just a beast of a man, juiced up to the gills. Great athlete, more of a great athlete, tough fighter than he was necessarily an elite fighter. But he was an all-world athlete. So I was fascinated by the train wreck that is Brock Lesnar, but he was never very technical. What was it that, were you ever a fan of Brock Lesnar? I should say that. Was that a guy you were ever a fan of, or you didn't like the WWE circus that he brought?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had no problem with the WWE because Brock's an NCAA champion. Like he has real credentials. Like he's a legitimate athlete. So I mean, it's not like the whole CM Punk thing. But then even to CM Punk's credit, he got there and he trained and he worked his ass off, and and he got that opportunity. Now, we can argue whether that opportunity was deserved as opposed to, guys that have trained their entire lives for that chance. But it is what it is. The guy trained hard. He got in there and he took his lumps. You got to respect him.
Yeah, and you're right. And Cain Velasquez kind of gets forgotten about. We hear about John Jones. We hear about all these guys, the GOATs. He is one of the guys that is really forgotten. But Cain Velasquez is really, arguably, to me, one of the greatest UFC heavyweights of all time. He was a great wrestler. And I think what a lot of people missed on that specific fight is I did love Brock Lesnar. Also love Cain Velasquez. Was his wrestling was actually better than Brock Lesnar's. That's what a lot of people don't realize. His stand-up was better. His striking was better. And his wrestling and his takedown defense, every check except for a brute superhuman strength that Brock Lesnar has, mule kicking strength, Cain Velasquez had the edge, and that's really what separates the difference here. Let's get Cam in here. I know Cam was having some technical difficulties. I thought I was going to have to go Cain Velasquez and Brock Lesnar on Cam. So Cam, let's get you in here. You're new to the UFC game. Let's hear it.
I know. I'm looking forward to
Go ahead, Cam.
I'm looking forward to seeing, Jake Paul fight Floyd. So, I mean, I know it's a gimmick, but it's going to be fun to watch. I'm still fairly new to MMA. I've been more of a boxing fan. Preston got me into MMA, and he was 100% right. Boxing sucks now. There's no two ways around that. MMA is the far superior fight product. You guys are the experts here, so I'll let you do most of the talking. But, I mean, I'm so disappointed in boxing.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. And we're going to go back to Jordy here. So I want to kind of set the stage here. So it is confusing. You've got two big 6'2", 6'3", 210, 215-pound, the Paul brothers. Okay, so you've got Jake Paul, who is on the cover. He's getting all the highlights. They both got 20 million followers. He's the guy that stole Floyd Mayweather's hat, to kind of reset the stage here. So he stole the hat. But he is not fighting. So that's Jake. Jake is not fighting Floyd. It's the bigger, older brother, Logan, who is, believe it or not, he's bigger and stronger, but he's not as skilled as Jake Paul. We're going to dive back into that. Logan is actually fighting Floyd Mayweather. But again, the younger brother, Jake, stole the hat like a younger brother likes to do. The younger brother likes to take the hat, poke the bear, poke the brother, and then the older brother smacks him. So, Jordy, do you have any brothers before we get your take on this?
I do. I have a younger brother. I have a little brother. Yes. I mean, he's not quite like Jake Paul, but I mean, he's a lot nicer than that. He's not going to take people's hat. He won't take your hat, Cam.
Now here is what. Now I tell you what. He might take my hat. The Bucks. The Bucks.
He would take your hat. He's a Saints fan.
There you go. Oh man, you guys must have had some brawls there. Patriots fan, Saints fan. That's wild. But here's what I wanted to set the stage here with this conversation specifically. So we talked about Brock Lesnar. He was kind of the early, mid 2000s, later 2010, kind of a. I don't want to call him a novelty act because he was a legit national champion wrestler. People focus on WWE fans. Those are probably the ones giving you the hate, the WWE fans. Because then I watched WWE as a kid, but the WWE fans, they still think wrestling's real. They haven't figured that out yet. So Brock Lesnar was the first train wreck, and then they had CM Punk, who was an absolute dumpster fire. And I remember right around that time, I interviewed Rich Franklin, former great MMA champion, UFC champion. Love Rich Franklin. And he talked about, and I found it fascinating, the ego of many of the UFC fighters, the different mentality between boxers and UFC guys. UFC guys take a lot of pride in fighting tough guys. They take a lot of pride in tough guys that they don't want to fight free fights. They don't want to fight these freebie kind of nothing guys. What they want to do is they want to fight the best fighters. Because I remember asking Rich Franklin, Rich, you've only got one fight left. Would you want to fight a guy like a CM Punk that's kind of a joke? And he goes, no, I want to fight a Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, a top-tier flight guy. And I find that interesting where the way boxing's going now, boxing has done such a horrible job for years because you see, what have we seen since the beginning of time of boxers? Two guys go 28-0, 30-0, and then they fight. And but by that time, they fought in a bunch of tomato cans. UFC doesn't do that. Every time, it's top 10, top 10, top 10. So, Jordy, if you can kind of speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, so, I don't want to call out boxers at all for this, but, what I will say, I feel like the culture in boxing is the fact that they've made it so it's a bad thing to lose fights. I mean, Chael Sonnen has always said, and I love this about Chael, he's always said, two guys step into the ring, it's a 50-50 shot. I mean, it's a crapshoot. One guy's going to leave with his hand raised, and one guy's is going to leave a loser. That's fighting. That's real fighting. But in boxing, you're nobody if you've lost a fight. If you're 18-3, you're a bum. I mean, it's just the way that it is, and it's been that way for so long. Obviously, guys want to pick fights, and then they might have 4, 5, 6 fights in their career that is actually a big deal. But other than that, it's just a bunch of tomato cans. It's just not the same in MMA. It's okay to lose. You look at Randy Couture and Liddell's records, or even BJ Penn's record. BJ Penn's one of the greatest lightweights of all time, and I mean he doesn't have a pretty record. I mean he doesn't have a great looking record. Randy Couture does not have a pretty record, but you wouldn't argue with me that he's not one of the all-time greatest fighters. I mean it's different. It really is. It's apples to oranges type of thing.
It is different. I'm glad you brought that up about Chael Sonnen. So the difference between boxing and UFC and MMA specifically is in boxing, it's true. The sick part about boxing, we've been trained as fans. Okay, this guy's got to be 20-0, 25-0. He's got to have that level, or if he's 20-5, he's terrible, which is ridiculous. But that's just the way we're trained as fans, that we have two 25-0 guys fighting each other. Whereas in UFC, what's great about UFC is a guy like Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen's one of the greatest, but he's just not the greatest. So he went against John Jones, who's the greatest of all time, with 2 weeks' notice, who's up in weight class. Okay, he went against, and I'm talking about Chael Sonnen. He went against Anderson Silva multiple times and lost both times. I look at it like this: Chael Sonnen is a silver medalist. There's nothing wrong with a silver medalist. We're not going to tar and feather a silver medalist, but Anderson Silva is a gold medalist. And there is a tenth or two of a difference between a gold and a silver medalist. You're talking about with UFC, boxing is more regional. I know every country has boxing, but boxing is typically more American, a little bit of England, some other places. UFC, Chael Sonnen was the best in America. Anderson Silva was the best in the world, specifically from Brazil. So there's UFC is so much more international, so much more. You can have the best guy from America, the best guy from England and India and Africa, and all these great places coming together. That's what I love about the UFC. Unfortunately, with boxing, if I said to you, Jordy, who is the biggest draw in boxing right now? What one name would you give me at any weight class?
At any weight class? And see, this is horrible.
The biggest draw, not the best boxer. So don't tell me about. Don't say so. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, those guys are the best boxers. Or you could say maybe Floyd, even though he's past his prime. Which guy would you say is the biggest draw? So if I'm 25-0, if I'm 25-0 and I'm coming up the depth chart and I want to face that 35-0 guy, but I have a choice to fight a 35-0 guy or a guy like a Jake Paul, who's 3-0 and not a real boxer, even though he's a tough athletic guy, or Logan Paul, who's totally not an elite boxer. But I'm going to make, if I'm coming up the pike, I'm going to make $10-15 million fighting the Paul brother. Why would I fight a young, hungry, 6'5", 240-pound guy eating raw tuna at 4 a.m., training at the gym, throwing up every day, running to the hills when I could fight a Paul brother that's doing Disney and doing all these other things and making $10-15 million? That's the problem that boxing's facing right now.
Yeah, now I mean there's no stars, man. I mean there's no stars in boxing. It's just it's sad right now. It's a real sad state. I mean, you got guys that couldn't sell water to a dog in the desert right now in boxing. It's just the way that it is. There's no stars. You go to the UFC, there's a ton of stars. I mean, we can name them all. You got like Conor McGregor, you got the Diaz brothers, you got Jorge Masvidal, you got John Jones, then you got Francis Ngannou coming. Derek Lewis is a very entertaining personality. I mean, Rose Namajunas, she's not even talking trash, but she's a face, she's a name. There's no stars in boxing. Canelo, Tyson Fury, it starts getting hard. It starts getting hard now. Then we got to go to Manny Pacquiao. And then we talk about if Floyd would come out and retire.
Yeah, when I was coming up the pike, it was always Tyson and Evander Holyfield, Tyson and Lennox Lewis. Tyson was must-see TV, okay? When he was coming, there's not a boxer. Look, you could say maybe Floyd Mayweather was a box office draw because he was all the things that he did that, half the people loved him, half the people hated him. He was a great main event guy. But as far as heavyweight boxing, yes, Tyson Fury's great. Anthony Joshua's great. To me, neither one of these guys has a interest. They're not interesting to me. They don't have an interesting personality. A lot of these fighters have kind of a chaotic Mike Tyson, Conor McGregor. These guys are chaotic and they're fascinating. And I hate to say this, but Paul brothers are fascinating. Whether you love these guys or hate these guys, Jake Paul is interesting. Now, Jake Paul eventually is going to get his wish. He has called out so many guys in boxing and UFC where he is going to get his wish. He is going to find his maker, and he is going to find a guy that is going to hit him square on the chin, and he's going to run out of washed-up basketball players, washed-up YouTubers, washed-up Twitter stars, and washed-up MMA fighters with two busted hips. I love Ben Askren, but he had two busted hips. I think my dad, at 67 years old, could have given some golden gloves to Ben Askren. I mean, Ben Askren looked horrific out there. What are your thoughts on that, Jordy?
I mean, come on, man. We all knew Ben Askren. Anybody in the know that's seen Ben Askren fight in the UFC or anywhere knew he probably didn't belong in a boxing ring with Jake Paul. I will say this, like, I'm really torn on it. Like, the purist in me hates what's happening right now. Like, I hate turning it on and seeing, and I love Snoop Dogg, but you have Snoop Dogg doing the commentating and everything.
That was horrible.
It's like a club scene out there. It's almost like a joke in a way. So like that part of me hates it. But then there's the part that sort of likes the circus aspects of it. Like you said, Jake Paul is a very fascinating character. I mean, he's hard to watch. And I will say this about him. He gets a lot of slack. No, he's not a great boxer, but he's a decent boxer. And he's a tough kid. He's a tough dude. He really is. Tough dude, former wrestler. He's an athlete. Like, he's no joke. He hits hard. So, I mean, if you put him in there with someone like a Ben Askren, like you said, with the two busted up hips and the dad bod. I mean, obviously Ben's not going to stand a chance in a boxing match. It's just not the same. Now, if Jake Paul were to fight Ben in the octagon, Jake Paul would get dumped on his head within 2 seconds.
Say that again. If Jake Paul,
if Jake Paul were to fight Ben Askren in the octagon, he'd get dumped on his head within 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I have to say, I got to be honest, I was really disappointed. But I kept watching because I kept look. I'm always going to go. When it's UFC or boxing, I'm always going to go UFC because, like you said, if the boxer goes into MMA or UFC, he's going to get destroyed, no doubt about it. Because what people don't understand, because obviously the last few years UFC is getting more and more popular, more and more. It's in the mainstream now. It's not getting it's mainstream. UFC is totally mainstream. It sold for $4 billion a number of years ago. It's climbing up, more and more valuable. But what people don't realize, boxing is an element of mixed martial arts. It's one piece of it. In UFC, you can kick, you can elbow, you can do all these things. I was just so disappointed in Ben Askren, and I'm watching him train, and I'm like, he doesn't take it seriously. It's like he just didn't take it seriously. His conditioning was terrible. He was like 192. He's almost 25 pounds heavier than any other fight he ever had. You can't tell me he took that seriously. He didn't. He didn't take it seriously. He had 2 busted hips. He showed up from it. Look, we all would have done it. We all would have gone out there for $5 million or whatever the number was and taken a whooping or whatever. That's just the fact. So, but yeah, the Jake Paul, Logan Paul. Now, Logan Paul's interesting. Now, I've heard a lot of people that think Logan Paul, and Logan is 25, the older brother, 6'3", 215 pounds. He's a big, strong guy. That they think he can beat Floyd Mayweather in the boxing ring just due to the fact of Floyd's age and due to the fact that Jordy obviously doesn't. Let's hear it, Jordy. You're not buying it.
Oh, my goodness. Man, that's the funniest thing I've heard all year. That's hilarious. Logan Paul's going to beat Floyd Mayweather.
Look,
Money Mayweather. Logan Paul.
Let's be real. Floyd Mayweather is 5'8", 155 pounds, and he's 45 years old. Logan Paul is 6'3", 210 plus pounds. I'm not saying they're in the same class as far as skill level. I would not even argue that. I'm saying I could see a scenario, but nobody thought Jake Paul was going to beat Ben Askren too.
Yeah, but right? Ben Askren is not Floyd Mayweather, not by a long shot.
I agree with you. But Logan, let me ask you this. Here's how I look at it with the Paul brothers. If you were at the club or the bar and you bumped into Jake Paul, you would not want to fight. As a normal person, you would not want to fight either Paul brother if you were at a bar. You would want to choose a smaller guy. That would be your choice.
Okay, but then I could flip that for you. Do you know who Ryan Hall is in the UFC?
Yes.
The jiu-jitsu guy. If you bumped into him in a club, that's a guy you wouldn't want to fight either. But then you walk out with broken legs.
Of course, but okay. So here's my point. My point is Floyd Mayweather is not a heavy puncher. I'm just saying. Look, is Floyd Mayweather a better boxer? Of course, I'm not disputing that. But I'm saying, as big as Logan Paul is a big guy, he's 60 pounds heavier and he's 6 inches taller than Floyd. You don't put any stock into that.
He's a big guy, but Logan Paul's not a real boxer. I'm sorry. I mean, he has it. There are amateur boxers on the planet that will embarrass the Paul brothers right now. They're not real boxers.
Jordy, I'm telling you this. After last week, I saw when he destroyed all 4 Gronk brothers. I don't know if you saw that by Logan Paul. Now, they're not – I'm like, these are big 6'4", 250-pound guys, and he demolished all 4 of them.
Are the Gronk brothers professional boxers, though?
I'm just saying – Floyd Mayweather is used to fighting little 150-pound guys.
All right, let me throw this at you right here. So I used to I trained mixed martial arts for years, and I used to actually the place that I trained at, they actually had Luke Sanders out there. He's actually fought in the UFC before, and they had a few other guys, but there was this older guy out there. Wasn't a big guy. This guy's probably in his 50s, and he was a former Golden Gloves boxing champion. So what they would do is the younger MMA guys that would start to kind of feel themselves a little bit. These are some bigger guys. They would throw them in there to that older guy and give him some rounds with them. And they get in there thinking like, man, who's this old man? I'm about to wipe the floor with this old man. And I have seen this 50-something-year-old man piece so many young fighters up. boxing, man, it's an art. It really is an art, and Floyd Mayweather has perfected it. He really has. It's an art. It's an art. It's hard to appreciate it because you're in there and you see it, but like it's an art. Now, obviously, there's always a puncher's chance. I can't argue that, but it's harder in boxing than it is in MMA because you have the bigger gloves. So you don't have those tiny gloves that can kind of sneak in behind the ear or anything like that. It's going to be hard for Logan to penetrate Floyd's defense. It's going to be tough.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Look, I'll tell you this. Floyd Mayweather, as far as points go, he's got the points chance of winning. There's no chance that Floyd Mayweather knocks out Logan Paul. There's a 0% chance of that. I see, because Mayweather never knocks out anybody. His last 10 years, he has. You could say he knocked out Conor McGregor if you want to give him that, but yes, his last 10 years, he hasn't knocked out a single professional fighter as far as boxer, not one.
Yeah, I don't see him knocking him out, but I feel like Logan's going to get a good boxing lesson. You know, early on, Floyd likes to play the game a bit. You know, Logan might throw some punches to make him look good early on, but Floyd's going to piece him up. It's going to be a boxing lesson, and then he'll pat him on the butt and say, "Good job, kid. Got your hat."
What's your prediction? What's your prediction?
I got Floyd by decision. He's going to piece him up. He's not going to knock him out or anything like that. He's going to embarrass him. It's going to be embarrassing.
Okay.
No, I agree.
What's that, Cam?
I agree. It's gonna. I mean, he's gonna throw that jab. It's gonna be not even close.
I don't know about that. I have never been overly impressed with Floyd Mayweather. I think Floyd Mayweather is extremely overrated. I think he was great at playing the points game. If he was a karate guy, he'd be the karate champion that won the points tournament. He was never knockouts. He always dodged guys. He fought Manny Pacquiao 5 years too late. I'm not as the fact that he's 50-0 and his last so many fights have been against guys that were washed up. I mean, let's be real. He fought Conor McGregor. I love Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's not a boxer. He's fighting Logan Paul. Logan Paul's also not a boxer. I mean, how many? And then he fought the Japanese guy in Japan. That guy was also not. How many fights does he have in the last so many years of guys that are past their prime, not boxers? Look, from a money perspective, he's doing what he can. I'm just saying, this guy's not Mike Tyson. People are acting like Floyd Mayweather is Mike Tyson.
Well, I mean, I've never really gotten that from him. And I mean, Floyd's retired right now, so it seems like he's just kind of doing these little circus fun fights. But like kind of back to what you said about him not being a knockout artist, you saying he's overrated. I mean, isn't that what you do in boxing? You're not supposed to get hit. I mean, it's the sweet science. It's the sweet science, you know, hit, not be hit. And Floyd has mastered that. I'm not necessarily a fan of the guy, like the person Floyd, but I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of his boxing style. It's amazing. It's not fun like Mike Tyson. He's not knocking people out, but just the way that he's making people miss. I mean, he's making you miss by inches. When you say sweet science, you think Floyd Mayweather.
No athlete has dominated their sport more than him this century. No athlete.
There you go. Exactly. He's right.
Well,
he's right. What about Canelo? I mean, he beat Canelo. And I mean, Canelo's the guy right now. And I mean, Floyd pieced Canelo up. I mean, It was a.
Okay, I'm looking at Floyd. Okay, everybody's in love with him. Okay, he fought Marcus Mandana, who was good, but again, so he fought him twice. He did beat Canelo. I'll give you that. So he has beaten some good guys, but again, he has not fought since Conor McGregor in 2017. He didn't fight in 2016. So and then he fought Manny Pacquiao 6 years ago when Manny Pacquiao had a torn rotator cuff and was substantially past his prime, and it still was not that impressive a win, in my opinion.
Of course not. Yeah, that fight was wrong.
Sorry, go ahead, Cam.
It was terrible.
No, that fight was terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. But I mean, I feel like that kind of speaks into the greater subject of that being a boxing problem. Boxing's just terrible at putting these fights together. I mean, they were talking about Floyd Manny for years. It took them forever to finally get that together, but that's kind of a boxing problem. I mean, there's always something in the way of these fights from happening. Unlike MMA, you get the fights you want to see.
I'm just saying, I like it when guys get in there and mix it up. Floyd is a tactician. He is
For
great.
sure.
I'm not taking anything away. And you could make an argument, yes, he's extremely dominant as his sport. But if you talk about this century, I mean, again, since in the last 11 years, he's fought 8 fights. 8.
Correct.
Come on, man. So he was good at when he was young. When he was young, he was a machine, no doubt about it. But I felt as the money went up with Money Mayweather, he started to pick more selective fights and so on and so on and so forth. I'm just saying, Floyd's great. I'm just saying, just trotting a guy out there's name, Floyd Mayweather, don't be surprised if he gets knocked down.
So are you picking that? Are you picking that?
I'm taking Logan. I'll take it. I'm taking him. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced.
Yeah, with your chest.
Yeah. Look, all I know is Floyd did not look impressive against Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor was the same size. So, and Conor McGregor's not a boxer. Logan Paul's also not a boxer. But I'm simply saying that, yes, a guy 6'3", 210 pounds could very well beat a guy 5'8", 150 pounds. I'm not saying that that's outside of the realm of possibility, regardless of the skill. We have weight classes for a reason. It's expected the bigger, stronger guy to beat the smaller guy. Let's be real.
If Floyd was fighting Tyson Fury, I might be on board with you, but I think you're going to be shocked. He's going to give you and Logan Paul a boxing lesson in this fight. Watch.
There we go.
Well, we'll see about that. Before we go, let me ask you this. Is there a 175-pounder boxer that's a top 10 right now that Floyd would beat?
That Floyd would beat right now?
Right now, 175 pounds. Is there a single top 10? So you could pick guy 9, guy 10. I'm telling you right now, Floyd Mayweather today at 45 would not beat the 9th or 10th best boxer. I'm not talking about championship. I'm talking about the guy that's 175 today, 5'11", 175, would destroy Floyd Mayweather. That's 25. Destroy him.
But Floyd Mayweather's retired. So
that's what I'm talking about.
But Logan Paul is not Logan Paul is not a top 10 boxer. That's the difference right here. Logan Paul is a YouTube star that picked up boxing. He's not. It's not like he has not been training this his whole life. It is the technique behind it. It takes years and years to master this stuff. It takes years and years to master this stuff. Logan Paul is not on the level of those guys.
Let me ask you guys this. Anthony Joshua is a great boxer. Would we all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he not get knocked out stone cold by Andy Ruiz?
Yes, he did.
Yep.
Nobody thinks Andy Ruiz is better than Anthony Joshua. Nobody thinks he's better than Tyson Fury. And Ruiz, what did they say? Anthony Joshua was carved in stone, the ripped physique, and Ruiz totally knocked him out. I'm just saying, when you go against big guys, and Logan's not at quite that size, I'm just saying he is a big guy. Anything can happen. I don't think, would 25-year-old Floyd beat this Logan Paul? Yes. I'm saying this old, dilapidated Floyd, if he thinks he's just going to show up and cocky and not expect Logan Paul to bring the fight, it would not surprise me if Floyd Mayweather gets knocked down. It would not surprise me.
Well, Ruiz is a real boxer again, and I'll say this too. Floyd Mayweather, for whatever you say about that guy, he works harder than everybody. He does. He takes every fight seriously. It's not a game.
He used to.
Even that Conor. No, he still does. Even that Conor McGregor fight, Floyd trained his ass off for that fight. Floyd takes every fight seriously. Every fight. Trust me, he is training his ass off.
All I know is Floyd did not spar the fight. He said he didn't spar the final 3 or 4 weeks of that fight.
Well, there's some guys who don't spar at all for fights. Even at one point, Conor wasn't sparring for his fights. That's just, that's a mentality thing. It just depends on the fighter.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Good takes, Jordy. Jordy, we appreciate you. We appreciate your takes. Thanks again for your time. You have to get your BJ Penn guys on. Get your BJ Penn guys on. We'll have to go. We'll get some Golden Gloves going with them too.
Let's do it, man. You guys have a good night.
All right, Jordy. Thanks, Jordy.
Thanks, Jordy.
So, Cam, did you get your screen figured out there? By the way, like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again. Did you get everything figured out?
I believe so. I want to grab my phone. We break glass in case of emergency, but we'll get this situation figured out.
Yeah, we are going to break some glass. Look, I understand a lot of boxers have this elitist mentality that boxers can't be beat. Let me just And I know he loves UFC and boxing. He loves them both. That's why I was starting to get concerned about Ben Askren. But I'm like, look, he has 2 busted hips. Jake Paul is a legit boxer. Is he elite? No, he's not elite, but he is maybe elite. He is a very solid boxer. I'm talking about Jake Paul. Jake Paul is a very solid boxer. Okay.
Yes.
He's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, and the biggest skill that Jake Paul has, he's comfortable with the lights.
Yes. He is.
What does that mean? A guy that's 20-0 might be a better boxer than Jake Paul, no doubt about it. But he might not be able to handle the 3 million viewers and the 20,000 fans and the lights and that level of a stage. Stage fright's a real thing. That's my point. What are your thoughts, Cam?
No, that's absolutely true. He's very comfortable on the stage. You're right.
So you think Floyd Mayweather cannot be beat?
Not by this guy, no.
Why?
Because he's never lost to a real boxer. Why is he going to lose to a YouTube star?
You keep throwing up. Cam, you're trying to be a YouTube star. Everybody loves to throw this term out there.
I'm not trying to be a boxer.
Everybody's throwing this out there. Oh, he's just a YouTube star. No, he's not just a YouTube star. Look, Jake Paul, the younger brother, is legitimately training. Logan Paul knocked out last week all 4 Gronk brothers. All 4 of them. They're all a variation of 6'3", 6'4", 250, 200. They're all big, strong athletes. Are they highly trained? No. But I'm saying Logan Paul destroyed them. So everyone's like, oh, there's no way Floyd Mayweather can lose. Right. Just like there's no way Ben Askren can lose.
And there was no way Mike Tyson could lose to Buster Douglas.
And there's no way but guess what? I'm glad you brought that up about Mike Tyson because that proves my point. Mike Tyson's the greatest boxer of all time. Most people believe he's the greatest boxer of all time. Mike Tyson was 5'11", 220, 222 pounds in his prime. Do you know how big Buster Douglas was? Buster Douglas was 6'5", 260 pounds.
Correct.
If I go to a group of kids, I say, kids, their names are irrelevant. Who is the bigger, stronger fighter? 6'5", 260, 5'11", 220? The kids would say the big guy.
There we go. Absolutely.
I'm not making an argument that Buster Douglas is better. What I'm saying that people seem to be missing, they seem to act like boxing is some sweet science and all blah, 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 that the more skilled guy wins. No, it's a street fight. It's an organized street fight. Like Chael Sonnen says, it's 2 guys getting in the ring, knocking the crap out of each other. And I'm simply saying that Logan Paul is the elite boxer. No, but I have a prediction. Logan Paul will knock down, possibly knock out Floyd Mayweather, and that is going to leave a horrible look for boxing. Horrible.
It will. It absolutely will.
Because Logan Paul is better than the Japanese guy. Logan Paul is a better boxer than Conor McGregor is. As great as Conor McGregor is as a fighter, and I love Conor McGregor, he fought a bunch of 145, 150-pound guys. Nobody seems to grasp that. They're little men. True. Little men, 150 pounds.
It's true. It's true.
You're right. It's true. So like and subscribe to the channel. We got everything figured out. See ya.